I'm here with Eddie Torres. He's the composer behind Nawal The Jewel. We've met before, but congratulations.
Yes.
Welcome
Thanks,
to Fusion.
Thanks for having me.
No, you're more than welcome. Now, I know you're not the filmmaker, but just a very quick synopsis of the film. I know that's not what you're about, but just again, if you could just tell us very quickly what it's about.
Sure, from the composer's perspective.
Well, yeah, I guess so. Yeah. So actually, that's the question I should have asked is how does your music fit into what this story is about? So yeah, perhaps it's a duality question. So what is the story, and how did you create the music that will fit that narrative?
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's a story based on a true story, based on a lady, this woman who's sentenced to death for a crime that her country saw as a crime. She was raped, and she had to. And
she was the one that was sentenced to death.
And she was sentenced to death.
I know, it's hard to believe. Isn't
Yeah,
it is.
It is, and so the movie goes on to say, talks about her story, her journey in her country, and how she was a victim to this circumstance, and which makes it tough for women also. But it's a great story in the way that our director put it out, because the ending of the film, without saying too much of it, offers that hope for women, and so the obviously the story, creating the music to fit the story, was a lot of alone time, a lot of quiet time in the studio, just watching the film, connecting with the story, and that's where it all kind of evolved. It started for me. So I'm not sure if that answers.
No, it does, because because then you've got to create a music. A piece of music, or not a piece of music, you're going to create a 2-hour piece of music to fit with the story. So, you're lying alone in bed one night and thinking, how do I do this? Or however you do it, maybe you're in the studio, I don't know. What would be the process? So you've got an outline for the story. I'm assuming this is even before a frame has been shot. You know what the story's going to be.
Yes.
So that's to give you time to start thinking about it,
Yes,
right?
yeah, the director worked, he was nice enough to send me the script, and I think that's kind of customary for composers to get a script, to get the readers a little bit about the story, understand what your challenges may be. And
I believe, sorry to interrupt, I believe that you had to have an Iranian theme to it, or influence. Is that a better word? I don't know.
Yeah. So you have the director's punch list, right? So
punch list. Okay.
He says, "Hey, these are the ideas of we'd like. We'd kind of want some of these elements in the film," and it was the culture of the sounds, the elements, the rhythms, the styles of the different instruments played. So after going through the script and understanding the film, what the film's going to be about, then I got to go back and start studying some instrumentation.
Yeah.
And one of the instruments which I used a whole lot in the film as a key instrument was called a duduk. And the duduk is a 3,000-year-old flute sort of instruments, but it's such an emotional, I call it an emotional instrument. You play it, there's parts in the scenes where it's just that the duduk is playing in a scene, and it sets the tone for what's happening in that shot. Other times it was the duduk with maybe a cello or a violin.
But you don't know this instrument?
No.
So does that mean you've got to learn the instrument?
So I have to understand how it's played a little bit. I have to understand how it works. And so one of my cheat list of people who I saw use this instruments in a concert was actually Yanni. Familiar with Yanni, the amazing orchestrator, a pianist, and travels the world. He did a performance with a gentleman who'd been playing this instrument for decades, and so I watched one of Yanni's performance with the gentleman playing the duduk, and I was blown away. It was just one of the. It captures your attention. That instrument starts playing, and it just all of a sudden pulls you into it. Like there's a lot of feeling to that. So anyways, the duduk was a prime instrument that I used in this film, and I thought it worked very well. My director, thankfully, was grateful.
And it gave that sound you're looking for, that lovely Asian, or that's probably, but yeah, that kind of that feel, the Iranian feel, that vibe to it.
Yeah, you know, it's a Turkish instrument. It's a 3,000-year-old instrument, and it worked well. I mean, I had some free reign with music elements in there. Obviously, our director says, "Hey, we'd like these kind of vibes. Here's some ideas of some of our music." The film was the director's from Malayalam, India. And he said, we want to keep some of these elements within the film, but we also want to add some of the Western vibe, so it has a little contemporary element to it as well.
Just give it a little twist to it.
Yeah, a little twist. Some of the string applications to it, and some of the piano elements. There's a song in the film which I wrote and co-wrote with a wonderful songwriter by the name of Ashley Garland. And we wrote this song for a certain scene. It was a prison scene. And that song, called Mothers, which is available on iTunes, by the way, now. Put it in there.
Good plug.
Put it in there. That song has a certain pattern in the chorus line, which I strategically took in certain parts of the song and added that element. So those who hear the song and then watch the film will make some connection at some point. Yeah, at least in their mind, they're like, that sounds familiar, because that melody kind of sticks with them.
So as a composer, I can't believe I've never answered this question. You don't necessarily have to be able to play every instrument.
No.
That's just been revealed, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. Especially nowadays. You know, there's a lot of conversations with great composers. Some of the icons I follow, like obviously Zimmerman, you know, or Hans Zimmer, and Brian Tyler, you know, and obviously John Williams, and you have that wonderful, great story about John.
Yeah, John Williams story.
Yeah. And so these guys, you know, they're asked the same question about the involvement of music composers in music nowadays. Here, with these softwares, if you can play a little piano, then you can defend yourself and actually produce some great sounds.
So as long as you can play the keyboard, the piano,
yeah,
that is generally the key.
That's generally the go-to. I mean,
right.
And so I play some piano, started early on, but my lead instruments are bass and guitar. Those are my main instruments. But as a young kid, I started playing at the age of 9. My dad got me a guitar at the age of 9, a $26 guitar.
So you start with the guitar. You can play the guitar, the piano,
and the bass.
And the bass, right?
And in school, I played trumpet. I was in
Right.
band, so I played some trumpet. So understanding the horn application as well is useful, and then I also played some drums and percussion. So if you've seen Brian Tyler, I connect with him because of that. Brian Tyler out of Hollywood, L.A. He puts you see him taking video clips of him playing the drums in a certain scene, or the guitar or the bass, and he jumps around from the instrumentation. You know, obviously when he goes and orchestrates this, he's got the whole band in the pit. But he does these instruments himself, and I find myself in that kind of element. Though I appreciate to have another musician in the room working with me on a project, that's because a different perspective, different feel to the instrument. But being able to do that also helps out when the budgets are limited too.
Well, it's just funny you mentioned about John Williams, because I think there's a famous story when Spielberg went to his house or wherever his recording studio and said, you know, I'm doing this film about a fish, or shark, sorry, great white. And he obviously pitched it, and he knew where, and he came up with it on the piano. Apparently Spielberg was like, you know,
oh no,
because you're not going to get the vibe from the piano, even those two notes, aren't you?
No.
But actually, if you know, luckily you went with it, and the rest just because actually when you watch it, even now the music is unreal, isn't it? You know,
it's amazing because it's always about a simple melody can take a song, it can take a piece of film to another level. I mean, and you know, there's so many films out there that you just hear a couple, 2 or 3 notes in the song. I mean, most hits in the music world, are based around 3 or 4 notes.
Right, I've heard this before, and that extends to popular music and everything,
yes,
doesn't it? Yeah.
It is. And it's because the common ear, the simplicity, those notes are easy for folks to remember, as opposed to I've done jazz music. I've produced some jazz albums, and that music
which can be complicated.
Oh, very complicated for the normal ear. You know, the average ear would listen to it, and they're like, "Yeah, that's great dinner music." They apply it to a certain scene, but not the music that you would probably dance to, or it's popular, or that you feel there's a line outside waiting for that jazz album to be out. You know, it's not like that. But those simple chords for 3 or 4 notes, and so in music, being able to use that same strategy.
Does that and that works for composing for a movie? If you can stick to the, I know it's not that simplistic, but that helps sticking to those 4. I mean, is it used?
It really does. It really does. You know, this is the discussion that men. I mean, the way filming out now is there's sound elements, and sometimes you just take one note, and you take that note and you change the key on that note somewhere in another scene, and then you change that note on another scene, but it's the same note. You're just changing the key, and it almost sounds like a whole different piece of music. But it's that simple. It can be that simple. I mean, you can get really creative in composing music for film, but you're dealing with audience, the general public. You want them to remember that hook. It's like pop music. It's the hook. Keep that hook. If you want your music to stand out in a film, obviously, so that's the challenge, always finding that hook. I mean, John Williams is one guy. I mean, when he wrote, some of the greatest films out there,
like Superman or Star Wars,
yeah,
and
even E.T. When you listen to those, I mean, you can hear the first 4 bars of that music, and everyone knows, right? Oh, that's E.T. They right away connect with it because the strategy, the time that he took to just focus on that small line, that short melody line. People remember that. It'll stick in your memory.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it works out.
So look, well done with this. Fantastic. Thank you very much, Eddie.
Thank you so much. It was my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
No, and really well done with the music, and I love the film.
Yeah, the film is fantastic itself. And I mean, it was great performances there as well. My colleagues in the film, Reem, main actress, Sweetha, who's an amazing, I think she was nominated for the supporting actress. And obviously our director, shout out to our director.
I spoke to him again yesterday. He's again amazing film and amazing vision, and what he put on screen is wonderful. And of course, we should point out there's two languages in this, isn't there?
2 languages. Yeah, it was filmed in Malayalam, and then on set, on the fly, they said cut, reset, let's start the English version.
All again.
All again. So musically, it was a little challenge because of the dialogue. So the director wanted a lot of the music to stay the same, true to the original language, Malayalam, but the language dialogue changes, so the timing changes.
Yeah, because it might be because of the dialogue, it might extend the scene or contract the scene.
Or contract the scene. Yeah. So there's a little strategy behind that as well, and there was probably a couple scenes that he might have said, let's give this scene a little change from the Malayalam version. But outside of that, we had to do it in two languages, and pulled it off. And pulled it off. Excited about it, and I'm proud to be I've been part of this project. Really am.
Thanks, Eddie. That's wonderful. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.